Thank you for watching my segment on how to make a slip leash. Before we begin, I want to talk about some safety issues. Number one, you're going to be using some sharp objects when you're making the slip leash, like a needle, thread. So you want to be really careful with any children, human or otherwise, that are going to be around you. Because notice while I'm getting this video out, my dogs are checking out the toy dog here. You don't want your dogs too close to you while you're sewing or you're cutting, because you don't want to poke them in the eye or anything. You also want to be careful about poking yourself. Another caution about slip leads themselves, even if they're Now, I've put this slip lead around this toy dog's neck. Now, the thing that's good about slip leashes is also the things that makes them dangerous. With a regular collar, a dog can slip out, but with a slip lead, if the dog starts pulling or tries to pull back, then notice that the slip leash will tighten. And if the dog pulled, the bad thing about a slip leash is, even though it's safe as far as not losing the dog, if the dog starts pulling really hard, the slip leash continues to tighten, and the dog could choke himself. So you want to be careful about walking a dog with a slip leash. You also want to be careful that the slip leash doesn't come too loose, because if it drops down too loose, and if you're not noticing it, if the dog is walking nicely, it could still slip over their head. That's why this slip leash has a stopper for keeping from doing that. And notice, like I said, my dogs are coming around to check things out, so that's why you want to be careful when you're using needles and scissors, because you don't want to injure your animals while you're making your slip leash. Another time you really want to be careful with a slip leash is you don't want to ever leave a dog alone or unattended with a slip leash on, because if this gets hooked into anything, like I said, just slides right over the head and then it adjusts. Now, one of the advantages of a slip lead is if you have a shy dog who doesn't want you coming around with two hands around their face to get a collar on, you can walk up to the dog sideways and just kind of slowly put the leash on over their head. It's safer for everybody that way. So there are some good points about a slip leash, but you must be careful not to let the dog damage their trachea. Welcome to my lesson about learning how to make your own slip leash. These are just some examples of store-bought slip leashes. This one you can buy at some specialty stores for this thickness around $15 or so. As you can see, the head goes through here, and if the dog pulls, then it tightens up, and the stopper here, so if the dog is walking nicely and the collar gets loose, the stopper stops it here. And it's a nice soft material, so it's a little softer on the dog's neck and softer on your hand. We're going to show you the handle piece here, and like I said, this is going to cost Before I show you how I make a slip leash, some of you with some craft skills or some rudimentary sewing skills might see a way that you can do this on your own if you take a careful look at the design. As you can see, there's just one small loop sewed on this end, and then it's looped through, and then the other end is just a bigger loop for the handle. And the same thing here, one small loop and the rope is lipped through, and then a bigger loop for the handle. Now the first type of slip leash I'm going to make is not going to have this ring. This ring is great because it makes it a little more slippery for maybe a shy dog or something when it's hard to get the leash on. The ring is going to cost you a little bit more money, so I'm going to show you a way to make it without this metal ring. Like I said, it's going to cost about $3 worth of materials. The metal ring might add another $1 or $2, and we'll do that in a later segment. So let's get started. Now, these are some slip leashes that I've already completed, so you can see what we're going to be working on today. And I use a couple of different colors. You can get this rope at most hardware supply stores like Lowe's or Home Depot. It's usually on a big roll, and they have a small variety of colors. And you can tell them how many feet you need, and they'll cut it off for you. I like to start with about 8 feet of rope, because by the time I get the head loop in and the hand loop in, then you're going to have about 6 or 7 feet for walking the dogs with. And I made a couple of different styles here. The black one here, I call it my no frills, because all I did was just use some regular thread to sew a small loop here. I ran it through and sewed a big loop here with just regular thread. And that's a black one. Also, here's one of my white no frills. And by the way, if Lowe's or Home Depot or other hardware store doesn't have a color that you like, you can buy white and then dye it any color that you like. This is another no frills. This is a little thicker than the other one, a little softer, and once again just use regular thread here. And it takes me about 30 minutes to make one of these. Now this one is a little fancier, because as you can see, for the head part I crocheted around where I sewed first, and I crocheted. If you don't have any crocheting skills, you could wrap some canvas around there and sew it on if you like. The leash I showed you earlier had leather. I really don't care for leather. We're walking a living creature with the carcass of another living creature, so I prefer canvas or crochet or a strip of cloth, whatever works for you. And this one has a stopper, like the other leather stopper I showed you. I just crocheted a stopper, so if the dog walks really nice, then it stops it from loosening up too much. And I also crocheted around the handle. I sewed first and crocheted around it. This leash takes about an hour and a half, and you need a little bit more material. You got to have your crochet needles and your crochet thread.